brutally honest. Ain't nothing but being brutally honest. Coming at you with another video. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome our guests, Clutch Gene Sports. How's it going, bro?
How's it going, man? Thanks for having me on, man. Appreciate it.
Anytime, bro. So, it must be one of those interesting weeks of the draft, huh?
Absolutely, man. Draft week's always a fun week, especially because you have people who do the work on Twitter. Like we go and scout people, and then you have fans that will be like, "You don't know more than John Lynch or Kyle Shanahan or Adam Peters, so how are you going to say it's a bad draft?" Like you have those people that like are very like condescending in the sense of they want to criticize you for criticizing the front office, which is hilarious to me.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes the way they pick, it's kind of questionable sometimes, but I just thought some of the picks were a little bit of a reach, in my opinion. It was just a little unpredictable.
Absolutely, and like I mean, and when you're drafting, like every draft room, they have different philosophies, right? Like if you look at certain teams, they draft for the next 2 years. So right, like that means they have a player who within the next 2 years is going to be out from that position, and they're drafting a starter for that position. You have teams that draft for now, like this year, hoping they could get a day one starter. And then you have teams like the 49ers, I think they have no roster holes, which hey, they have a good roster. You can't knock them. They have all pros everywhere on the 49ers. Line, running back, receiver, defensive line, linebacker, safety, like they have it everywhere. Um, but I thought the way they drafted was kind of careless in a way.
Yeah, like there was just some questionable picks, if I'm being honest. Like, we can go with that reaching for a kicker too early. It's just I thought if he was going to be gone in the fourth round, oh well, we could have got Chad Ryland or the other kicker, bro. There was other needs to get. We could have got an offensive lineman, but who are we to judge?
But the thing is that like taking a kicker at 99, like he better be a top 5 kicker, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like because when you look at the top 5 kickers or the top 10 kickers in the NFL, they're usually undrafted. Like Rohan, so my co-host Rohan did a quick research right away, right during mid-draft. Quick research, the top 20, like 4 or 22 or something like that, accurate kickers last year. Only a handful were drafted, and the earliest that was drafted was like round 5, like at pick 140 something. You took one at 99, like that's terrible value. But hey, people say Niners don't have any positions of need. We don't need depth on the defensive line. You know, people just bash Javon Kinlaw, but then say we don't have any needs. Well, I mean, yeah, you need depth, right?
Yeah. Oh, you're muted.
So you do need depth along the defensive line, along safety room. You need obviously you took safety, so now that's out the picture. Right tackle is an issue. Receiver isn't the greatest room, but hey, I guess the Niners had a different philosophy. But going into some of the other picks are great picks. Later in the draft, they had a good draft.
Yeah, like you know, when they first made that trade for Jair Brown, I liked that pick one bit. I was okay with that pick. That one was understandable because he would definitely replace Gibson by next year, and you need somebody who can step in. Maybe he might even outplay him in training camp, so who knows? Because this guy looks like he could be a starter right off the bat.
Yeah, the Jair Brown pick was a phenomenal pick. I really like that pick. Um, I had him going late second, early third. I felt like he fell a little bit. Um, that one was wise because even though Gibson is there, I don't think Gibson's good. I think Gibson had a uh, how should I say it? Like a year that he probably won't have again, which is all right. Um, that's why you draft the young safety. He'll probably come in, compete. Hopefully, he could start and have Gibson mentor him. You probably see a lot more three safety sets with Jair Brown in that star role, blitzing, doing the fun, fancy stuff that Steve Wilkes will ask him to do. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you were talking about how day 3 has went. Like so far, we kind of addressed the cornerback depth, but I just didn't think we didn't need to get that guy. I thought we would have got Tomlinson at least. That was a bit of a head scratch. Like we went with Daryl Luter.
I thought that was a phenomenal pick.
Oh,
Yeah, I absolutely do. So it's funny because like 3 or 4 days ago, my boy Rohan, which is my co-host, he's texting me like, "Hey, bro, what do you think of this corner? What do you think of this corner? What do you think of this corner? What do you think of this?" Like, asking me on 6 different corners, and I was like, "He's a good corner, but I'm still taking Darrell Luther over him, like
okay.
over 6 corners." And it was like some of the corners that went before Luther went. Um, so for me, it was one of those situations where I think the 49ers got a very good corner who could be a quality starter um, within the next 2 years. And that's exactly what I'm talking about in teams drafting for the future, right? The Raw
Mm-hmm.
Luther starter within the next 2 years. That's drafting for the future. Yes, you don't have no needs now, but within the next 2-3 years, you're gonna have needs when you have to pay people. Quarterback
Yeah.
need. You're not gonna be able to re-sign Demo. He's gonna get a decent contract. You probably won't be able to re-sign him. You need someone to replace him. You might not be able to sign Charvarius Ward, right? You're gonna have to bring guys in to fill those needs, and
Yep.
that's what we did with Darrell Luther, and that was a good pick. I thought that was a pick where you're getting a corner that's very good in zone, um, very aggressive, um, with his hands when he's in press man, someone who can run with anyone really, challenges receivers, isn't afraid to challenge people. I thought that was a good pick.
Yeah, I guess I'm looking at the lengthy arms. That's the only thing that everybody's talking about. His lengthy arms is pretty good. So it's like I just wasn't sure about where he was supposed to be, but I guess he's like that one corner that's a sleeper that might be pretty good. Just like how we had Samuel Womack last year. Nobody had an idea who he was, but he had those long, lengthy arms, and he just played the nickel pretty well. But he didn't get to play much of the nickel until after he was replaced by Jimmy Ward at that spot. So it was like whatever. But I think as far as us filling that position, I think our secondary depth is pretty deep right now. So we got a safety that can potentially beat out Gibson. Then you have other nickel spots. You have Isaiah Oliver out there, but what kind of stood out for me was we doubled down on tight ends, which I thought needed to be addressed. We didn't do that the previous years, and I like the fact, even though Latu was a bit of a reach in my opinion, I like the fact we went with him and Braden Willis straight up. Like we needed to get better. Rostwell and Charlie Warner, I don't know, they're just not it.
I'm not too crazy over the Cameron Latu pick. So Cameron Latu is a guy that does everything okay. Like he doesn't do anything great, doesn't do anything spectacular. Now you see people that are hyping him up, right? Like, oh, he's a sleeper. You guys don't know what you're talking about. That's cool, but if he's a sleeper, that means you could have taken him in round 5 or 6, or you took Braden Willis. Like Braden Willis is a better tight end, a better blocker, a better receiver, and a better overall player than Cameron Latu is, and you took him at the end of the 3rd round, and you got Braden Willis in the 7th round. Like it doesn't make sense. Like you same thing that happened with Elijah Mitchell and Trey Sermon when Elijah Mitchell was taken in the 5th or 6th round, and you took Trey Sermon in the 3rd round. The same thing that happened. Like you got the better player in the later round because you took someone that you fell in love with, and that's
Yep.
the issue. Is you fell in love with Cameron Latu, who is probably a great person, um, a leader, stuff like that. You fell in love with those traits rather than the player. Like he isn't a bad player. So like it's kind of like this pick was interesting because like he's not bad. Like he could block fairly well. It's not good, not great or anything. He could block fairly well. And is getting better. At the Senior Bowl, he showed like wow, he could actually block really good. Didn't really do that at Alabama, but when he went to the Senior Bowl, he was trying to impress NFL scouts and stuff, and he was blocking very well. So that was cool to see at the Senior Bowl. As a receiver, he's not much of a receiver. Like his red zone touchdown that everyone was like, oh, he's a red zone threat. Oh my God, we got Rob. I see someone say we got Rob Gronkowski in the red zone. No, we didn't. He doesn't out jump you. He doesn't. He wins because he's schemed open or he's wide open. Like it's not anything impressive in terms of route running where he's actually separating. Like it's usually the defense leaving him wide open.
Yeah, the way they built the scheme up in Alabama, like the way it was built on offense, he was able to get the ball from Bryce Young and those other quarterbacks before. So it's like he kind of converted from linebacker to tight end. So it's a natural position for him because he played it in high school. But I think he was coming as a recruit, just playing like linebacker. And then they asked him if he could switch the position. I mean, I still think he's maybe like one of those projects that you'll probably want to develop, but I think he's kind of like ahead of his game a little bit. But I think the more they coach him up, maybe there's something there that they really like about him. But as far as the red zone, yeah, he got targets maybe close at the red zone area, but I don't think it was like red zone where he got to those big plays, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Like it wasn't like when you see tight ends in the red zone, guys like Luke Schoonmaker and in the draft who went earlier, then Latu obviously, they're winning in the in the red zone with their athleticism, out jumping people. I didn't really see that from Cameron Latu watching his game. I could be wrong. Maybe Kyle found something, but then even when you look at Latu's athletic scores and like athletic numbers, he's not like that much of an athlete really. Like that's what worries me is in the NFL you got to be an athlete even if you're a good blocker. Like you still have to be a good athlete. Like to me, that's what worries me.
Yeah. But I feel like when we got Brandon Willis, I just felt like that was more of a better tight end because the guy does everything. Like you ask him to block, he's just going to do it. He's got the athleticism to get the big plays. Like he the way they build the scheme in Oklahoma, which I watch a lot of Oklahoma Sooners football, they build the scheme perfectly to where he can get the separation and make the big plays.
Absolutely. When you watch Brayden Willis, he plays like he's playing basketball.
Yep.
Like he really does. He um, cross like his routes he's running when he's going to break. It's a crossover. Like that's literally what he plays like a basketball player. And you tend to see smaller receivers like guys like Stephon Diggs play basketball when they're running routes. In a sense, when I say basketball, like so Stevie Johnson. I don't know if people remember Stevie Johnson,
Yeah.
receiver
Well,
back in the day for the Buffalo Bills. Great route runner. He used to literally when he was running, he would literally cross over when he was running his route. Like you would see him go hand movement, like an in and out cross, and he would shake people. And Braden Willis is the same thing. Not to the extent of these smaller guys, but you could tell like he has a basketball background. I don't know if he does or not. I haven't. When I did watch the few games I did watch of him, uh, I didn't really scout him that much. I didn't think that they were going to take him. Probably should have did a little bit more research on him, knowing that they had a couple of visits with him and stuff like that. I didn't do the research like I should have, but he's a guy who he didn't run the 40, which is interesting. I wonder if he thinks he would have ran slow, uh, faster than I think people see of him in the sense of he's a player who, when you're watching him, he plays faster than what he would probably run. And I think that's the issue on why he didn't run the 40 because his 40 would have been slower than what he actually is. When I'm watching him, good blocker. I don't think they should play him at fullback though. I know a lot of people say play him at that H back role. They have him be that hybrid, eventually replacing Juice. I think he should be a tight end.
yeah.
Uh, he could do the extra little stuff, which would be mismatches because technically you're in 12 personnel because you have two tight ends on the field, but you could also be in 21 personnel. with him. So you don't know really if you have him on the field with Kittle and let's say CMC, you really don't know what personnel the 49ers are in. He could play you could be in 12 or 21, and that's a mismatch for defenses because now you have to adjust when Kyle Shanahan goes to audible and he has his quarterback kill, and now they're in the right play and they're that he's matched up on a smaller safety or a smaller linebacker or a linebacker that can't cover him because they're trying to defend the run. So it's gonna be a lot of interesting things to watch in camp on him and Latu. I think one of those guys will compete for the last tight end spot. I think one of those tight end spots will be Charlie Warner spot. I don't know. That's just what I'm guessing. Uh, and one will probably be on the practice squad.
Yeah, probably one or the other. Then you look at it, the Niners going at edge rusher from Georgia. So it's like Robert Beal Jr. He ran a pretty interesting fast 40 time. His production doesn't say much because he's only had like I think the previous year he did lead the team in sacks, but this upcoming season he didn't do so much. But when you watch the tape, there's something that Chris Kasarik wants to work on. So I can see the upsides there, you know?
Yeah. See, when you're drafting or scouting, once you get to that range, the fifth round range, you want to bet on the athlete, right? Like that's literally what you're gonna do. And that's why the Niners have been successful in the fifth round is they bet on the athletes, right? If this guy's an athlete, I should be able to mold him into what I want him to be, right? They did that with George Kittle. They've done that with a number of people, Dre Greenlaw. And the reason is you're getting a high athlete, the upside is there. So it's a high reward, low risk situation because you're not wasting much draft capital on them. Same thing with Robert Beal. Like you just said, outstanding numbers, a 4.48. His I believe his 10 yard split was like 1.6, like a very low 1.6. Um, and when you look at stuff like that, that's the number I'm looking at is that 10-yard split. Um, because I don't care about what edge rushers run in the sense of um, 40s and stuff like that. Like, oh, that's cool. Like, yeah, I have to see someone run a 4.4 or 4.5 or whatever the case may be. That's cool. But if you're running that and your 10-yard split's a 1.8, that means it takes you super long to get off the ball. That's what I'm looking at is how fast can you get off the ball. When you're looking at Robert Beal, 6'4", 250 roughly, like 247 roughly. Gets off the ball like a screaming rocket. Um, what I wanted on the outside of Nick Bosa, I wanted speed. They got that. Now I don't know how good he'll be year one, but I could see him in a role in the sense of Hassan Reddick, and that's a big name to throw out there. I get that because a lot of people are like, oh my god, you're gonna throw Hassan Reddick's name out there. He's one of the better edge rushers in the NFL. Yeah, absolutely he is. But the way that the Philadelphia Eagles utilize him and use him, they use him off the line him up wherever. Hey, you're going after quarterback. You don't worry about the run. We don't scream off the edge of off the edge of the line, um, and go get the quarterback. And that's exactly what they should just let Robert Bill do to start his career.
Yeah, build him off the rotation, give him some opportunities to get to the quarterback. I think between him and Drake Jackson, that's what we needed to have on those rotations. But I think we're going to see what Drake Jackson can do as a starter. So getting somebody like Robert Beal and getting some other quality depth guys like Colin Farrell, then I think it's good that we're adding some quality pieces there.
Yeah, absolutely. You always got to add quality pieces, and then later in that round, in the fifth round, they go or sixth round, they take a athletic linebacker out of TCU. They take D Winters. I thought that was a solid pick. Because you did just lose. And that's what I mean by like smart teams, right? Like the 49ers taking Jake Moody and Cameron Latu to me didn't make sense because they've always been a team that drafts for the future. Like that's what blew my mind is like, okay, yeah, you don't have a kicker on the roster, but you could always just sign an undrafted free agent, which is cheaper and more likely to get more value for that player. Than them going D Winters to replace Aziz Al-Shaair. That's a smart pick. Better athlete than Aziz is. Um, Now, when you have a guy like Aziz who leaves, now you have Marcelano McCurry Ball that D Winters will probably compete with. And when you look at what D Winters looks like, I have not watched him yet. I'll probably get to him probably later in the week. But from the initial stuff that I've seen, Dre Greenlaw 2.0.
Oh yeah,
Extremely
he's very
right?
physical. He's very physical and quick on those, and he makes the plays too. But some have questioned his tackles at times, But I think it's coachable.
And so that's the biggest issue with most linebackers when they're playing that fast is you're coming in like a super fast rocket that you don't break down like you should. I love watching linebacker the most. That's what I played. So when you're coming in like a heat-seeking missile, you're not thinking of breaking down and wrapping up. You're thinking of a big hit, and that's when it becomes this guy needs to learn how to wrap stuff like that. I haven't watched him yet, so I'm not going to say anything like that about him. But his range is phenomenal from what I've seen so far. 4.48 or 4.49, I believe, speed. That's cool to see. Probably starts for us this year as that Sam Backer eventually might be able to replace Dre Greenlaw if he's good enough, which would be an awesome thing because Dre Greenlaw probably gets paid. And that's what I mean by smart teams draft for the future. So if they would have took, and the thing that's crazy is they're taking players that will replace players down the line in the 5th and 6th round that might not be as good of players because obviously usually the better prospect goes earlier. So if you take a better prospect earlier in the 3rd round, you probably have a better player to replace someone down the line. And that's, to me, that's where everything got confusing. To start the draft, taking Jake Moody, the Niners had the worst. On day 2, the Niners had the worst draft out of all teams.
Day 2, yeah.
By far. Like, there's no question about it. Day 2 they had the worst draft by any team by far, and it wasn't close. Absolutely wasn't close. Now, I'm gonna ask you this question. All right, what do you think how fans would have reacted if Seattle, Dallas, the Raiders, or the Rams would have taken a kicker at pick 99?
We would have a different reaction. We would probably just say, "You guys are dumb. You guys took a kicker too high." That's just how. I mean, I just don't think you need to go get a kicker that early. Like at least maybe 5th to 6th round or later. That's probably where you can get your kicker. But for other teams, I've seen the Raiders do it in the past. They draft Sebastian Janikowski in the 1st round, which I think is one of the craziest draft picks in history.
Absolutely, but like the thing is, like, is when you're taking a kicker that high, he better be generational. Like he better be the best kicker. Like taking Janikowski, and I seen someone say, "Oh, well, the Raiders took Janikowski in the 1st round." Yeah, but Janikowski is arguably one of the greatest kickers of all time. So like he has to live up to that expectation. You have to be one of the best kickers of your era.
Yeah,
that's high expectations for Jake Moody.
Yeah, Jake Moody has high expectation, and the last time the kicker that was drafted very high was Robert Aguayo, who only lasted 1 year in the league and it was cut by the Buccaneers.
Imagine if the 49ers, who aren't good at drafting in the 3rd round, so like that might be the reason why they went Jake Moody, because they know they're not good at drafting in the 3rd round. They have 1 out of 10 hit in the 3rd round, and that one player is Fred Warner, an all-pro linebacker. So when you look at that, it's interesting to take a look at that. But taking a kicker might be like the safe route for them. Like, hey, we're not good at drafting the 3rd round. They just take a kicker. We know he'll be with us for at least the next 5 years, 10 years, possibly, hopefully. That might be what they're thinking. But after D Winters, they took Braden Willis and then ended with a great pick, Ronnie Bell. Second to last pick, they got Ronnie Bell. What were your thoughts when they took Ronnie Bell over some receivers that were there earlier?
Man, like there was quite a few good ones, but I think Ronnie Bell was more of a fit because he was a possession receiver. He kind of makes the tough catches. I mean, there was quite a few guys that I probably would have wanted, but I could see why they wanted to go with him because the guy was coming off an ACL injury, like I think like last season or something, but he was coming off fresh and playing up to the level. There was quite a few other receivers in mind that you were talking about, but it's like Ronnie Bell just had that toughness that maybe that's what they liked about.
So when I watched Ronnie Bell, I thought it was a great pick because the Niners they have a certain type of receiver. They like strong route runners. They like guys that could run after the catch, have good football IQ, and are good blockers. And that's exactly what he is: a good blocker, good route, a very strong route runner. Like he's very good at running routes. Now he doesn't win much contested passes. Like he can't. He's not going to out jump you. He's only 6 foot. I don't expect him to out jump you and win 50-50 balls. Um, but he could develop into a very good quality receiver 2, receiver 3 kind of guy with
Yeah.
return ability. And that's what the Niners kind of need. They need a receiver 3, potential receiver 2 once everything gets super crazy when they have to pay Debo and Brandon Ayuk because that's coming up real soon. They're going to have to pay Brandon Ayuk. Debo's already being paid. You have to make a decision. Do you keep Debo? Do you keep Brandon Ayuk? Or do you just let a rookie develop and you make them the receiver 2? I personally think, might sound crazy, I would eat dead cap and I would eventually trade Debo. I'm paying Brandon Ayuk and I'm trading Debo eventually. I want the better route runner. In the NFL, players that last the most are route running receivers. They could go longer. Receivers like Debo are essentially a running back in the sense of their body's getting banged up so often, they're not going to last as long. And
Yeah,
that's
but
what I'm worried about with Debo.
a lot of mileage on it because when they get used a lot in different plays, running backs get told a lot with these injuries and they get hit a lot. So it's like Debo is just more than a wide receiver. He's just an all-around player. Like he's a running back, he's a receiver, and he gets a lot of hits. So that's probably where you want to go with a route runner. A route runner plays more longer because they don't take a lot of the risky hits as much because they're either just making the big plays or they're just not like taking a lot of the run plays, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And then they finished the draft off with Jalen Graham out of
I like
Purdue.
that.
I don't know much about him.
Ooh, I like his energy. Like when I was watching some of his film, I actually had him on one of my mock drafts. Like before we were doing the draft, I had him somewhere in between the 5th or 6th round. And I say this is the guy that would probably fit our system because he's a hybrid type of he's a safety with a linebacker. I mean, he has like a linebacker with safety background. So he's a very much a hybrid player. Runs a 4.64, plays a lot quicker than what people says. But dude, this dude, he's physical. Physical, makes the tackles, has the energy that you like, bro. That it's just hey, you roll a dice with this kid. This kid might be something.
Watching, I have to go and watch him. I know nothing about him. Can't say, oh, that's a bad pick. That's a good pick. But what I will say is, I felt like they passed up on some very good players with that pick. Now, I shouldn't say very good players because it's a 7th round, obviously, but athletes, I should say, very good athletes.
Jalen Redmond, we could have got a D tackle there, but nope.
That would have been a smart pick because, like I'm saying, is you're losing Javon Kinlaw. Who replaces it? The fans hate Javon Kinlaw, right? But then, how do you not want to replace someone, but yet you want them gone? Like you got to bring. So yeah, I know Javon Hargrave is there, but when we look at his deal, his contract really isn't the 4-year deal that it is. It's like a 2-year deal essentially.
They could be avoidable after that too. So
Very easy out, right? So I don't know, man. I thought this was an interesting draft of the 49ers. If I had to give it a grade, probably giving it a C. A C, yeah, about a C. Maybe a C plus, maybe a C minus. Like it's in that range where there's argument for a C plus, there's argument for a C minus. I wouldn't be mad if someone said I give them a B minus.
I mean, it's kind of like if they pan out, it would be more of a higher B or better. But these weren't like flashy big picks that we got out of them. So it was more like we brought guys who are going to replace the other players in the future. Then you have depth pieces here and there. Maybe they're really confident with Khalil Davis. Maybe they feel Khalil Davis is going to recover just fine because they got him last year as a redshirt, so they stashed him in from Central Florida. So they really like this kid. So maybe they felt it wasn't a need to get a D tackle, which I thought maybe they should have got one at least.
Yeah, they should at least got one D tackle, but they did that. I felt like they did that in the undrafted free agency period, which is the North Dakota State guy Spencer Wade. I think he could play D tackle, edge. I thought that was a very good UDFA signing out of North Dakota State.
Yeah,
he has decent upside. He has the measurables, has the athleticism. You could put him inside. Might be able to do something for you. I don't know, but that's a decent signing for the undrafted free agency. Other guys, other notable players that were drafted UDFA. I'm only gonna say this name only because I like the height. I wanted height on the 49ers. I wanted them to go size and speed. I don't know if this kid is fast, but Jadakiss Bonds. The Niners got a 6'4" receiver in the UDFA, and it's something that the offense has kind of missed in the sense of they haven't had someone that'll win them 50-50 balls. They have Jawan Jennings, but he doesn't do it on a regular basis. He's not I'm going to out-jump you kind of receiver. So I hope Jadakiss Bonds is that guy. I really wanted the Niners to sign Bryce Ford Whedon, 6'4" or 6'3" receiver, running a 4.38, wins 50-50 balls. I thought that's who they should have went and got as a UDFA, but they didn't, which isn't an issue. Like UDFA is one of those, like, honestly, only one undrafted free agent made the roster. Made an NFL roster last year,
or be on the practice squad, and they develop within the next year or so. They're like one of those guys. I mean, there's this one undrafted guy that probably caught my attention, and Joey Fisher, man. Like, I guess we didn't address the offensive line, but that dude, I guess he runs a 4.9, which is pretty good. But he played at a very small college. But what is it? 6'5", 320 something pounds. He benches like 40 reps on 225. That's pretty massive, bro. Like, I've heard a lot about him being a sleeper, and he's already undrafted. So I'm like, maybe he might be that one wild card guy who makes the team and maybe surprises people. I've heard a lot of good things about this Joey Fisher guy.
But Joey Fisher, from people that I talk to right away, I text someone who does more small school people, like prospects coming out. He said that the consensus was just Joey Fisher was going to be drafted in the 5th to 7th round. So being drafted in that range is a play. That means he could play. That means he's someone that could step in and probably play eventually down the line. I don't know if he ever will. Big transition from a small school to the NFL, like Shepard. I hope he can, though. I saw his bench press numbers, 40. That's phenomenal.
That's strong.
I want to say he had the fastest 40 in everything in 10-yard split out of any player, any offensive lineman. However, he didn't do it at the combine. He did it at his pro day. But still, those numbers would have held up at the combine. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I think he was one of those guys. As far as answer that question, Crazy Juice, we were already like talking about those undrafted guys. Yeah, we definitely checked those out. Who does Jair Brown remind us of? I mean, Jair Brown kind of gives me more of a, I don't know, like when I watch a lot of his college games, I like his style of play, but he kind of gives me more of a, I guess he's kind of like Hufanga, but at the different spot because he's an opportunist. And he
I don't know about comping him, man. Like I don't like comping players for the fact of when I comp players, it's more so like, oh, who do they resemble, or who do they remind me of? Not like, oh, this player is this player. Because sometimes, like when you comp, some people be like, oh, you compared him to, let's, for example, I saw a comp be thrown out with Cameron Latu on another tight end, or actually Braden Willis. Someone threw out Jordan Reed. I don't like that comp.
Yeah,
like he's a 7th round pick. Like let him be. You know,
let him be who he is, right?
Like, and I saw that, I'm like, no, you're comparing him to a Pro Bowler. A lot of times when we comp people, we want to give them the best player possible, right? Like to me, that's what worries me because we're gonna comp a bunch of players to very good players, and they're not that good. Like they're prospects, man. They're trying to learn the NFL still. Like let them be.
That's That's
Um,
like
well,
that's like me comparing Juwan Jennings to Des Bryant. I guess I had to slow my roll a little bit, but I just thought the attitude and the possession mentality was a little different. But maybe
I'm
I'm
gonna do something real quick. I'm gonna let my dog out. She wants to come outside. I'll be taking me about like 30 seconds to a minute. That's cool.
okay, no problem. And then we can end it pretty soon. All right. Yeah, you like Joey Fisher? Oh, so Elijah Higgins. So you're teaching at school. So you had Elijah Higgins as your student. That's cool. Must be nice to have somebody getting drafted by the Dolphins or somebody in the NFL in general. I mean, there was a couple of wide receivers like Bryce Ford Wheaton was like an upside, but I think getting a guy like Ronnie Bell was more possession. You had more, but I don't even think he'll even make the roster. I think he'll make a case for the practice squad because our receivers are pretty jammed right now.
Wait, Butterfly, your former student at Stanford or in high school? I'm very curious on that one.
No, she said,
Uh,
I guess it must be during high school she teach them.
I'm very curious. I don't think he's making that roster though,
Oh yeah, because
unless
you're yeah.
unless they're using him as a move tight end. I don't think he's making that roster. Even then, as a tight end, I don't think he has what it takes to be. And I don't know. I don't like saying this about
Oh,
players.
in middle school. Okay, so she
Oh, that's
cheats.
cool.
But
Um,
I guess like
because
from you just going to that school, you would have a better understanding.
yeah, I was at Stanford. I was covering Stanford and stuff, so I was there watching him frequently. Um, he's not. I don't think he's an NFL player.
Jake Hayner's not exactly what everybody's saying he is, bro. I've watched him. I went to Fresno State. He's not exactly what everybody's saying. They're hyping him to be Brock Purdy, bro. He is not. His footwork is sloppy, bro. He takes too much time on the pocket at times. And he's only had a couple of flashy games. If you talk about besides the UCLA game, okay, the San Diego State game, he made a comeback, but that was pretty much it. Like I'm not trying to down this guy whatsoever, but I don't get the hype on Jake Henner, bro. I've seen him play for the last couple of years.
And to what Butterfly is saying is absolutely he has worked hard. I'm not knocking that against him. I'm talking more so, it's more so like the analytical side and actually looking at the whether the player is going to make the roster. I'm a fan of his. Covering Stanford, I'm a fan of every Stanford player. Um, but I was so surprised. I think he went in the fifth round.
Yeah, I think he has a good chance maybe to I think that's why they have Higgins for him. Maybe because they're gonna have him switch to tight end, which is a simple transition for him because of his receiving skills. But you would know more because you watched him behind the scenes and seen what he did. So what was something about him that caught your attention about him? Like why you feel like he doesn't deserve that kind of hype?
Just the way he runs routes, the way he takes so long to get up to speed. Um, in the sense of he's fast, but it takes him a long time to build that speed. Like there's no short area quickness. There's nothing like that. Like it's very tight hips, very slow out of breaks. That's it's. I mean, it's something that when you're looking at a player you don't want to see. Hopefully, he proves me wrong though. I want him. I want to see every player that gets drafted succeed. Hopefully, he proves me wrong, and I eat everything I just said. I eat all those words.
Yeah, it's okay to be critical, but at the end of the day, you are you are a supporter to Stanford and the players in general. So it's not nothing wrong with that. So it's no knock on him. So it's like I attended Fresno State, and there is some critical issues I have with Jake Hayner. I don't think he's exactly what everybody thinks he is. Like,
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I'm very intrigued on what he can be and stuff like that. Um,
Cropper's going to be pretty interesting because he's got that he's kind of like that do it all wide receiver, and I think the Cowboys made a pretty interesting signing it as an undrafted. That was another guy I probably would have been okay with the Niners taking a flyer on, but I think he wanted to be a Cowboy the whole time.
on who?
Jalen Cropper.
Oh yeah. That's he's. I'm surprised he went undrafted like that. To me,
Yeah,
that was shocking. I thought he was a very draftable player.
Yeah, and then they had this one kid who transferred from California, Nico, whatever his name is. He was another wide receiver we had for 1 year, I believe.
Oh yeah. I know you're talking about. Man, good draft though, man. Like in the sense of like when I say, I wish the Niners would have. I'm glad they didn't take a quarterback. Very glad they didn't take a quarterback. But I kind of wish they did just to see the chaos on Twitter. Like I could only have imagined what
They would just say they gave up on Trey Lance and all that BS crap.
I knew 100% they were not taking a quarterback. 100%. Like everyone that asked me, "Oh, what quarterback?" We're not taking a quarterback. Like stop breeding stuff. Go touch grass. We're not taking a quarterback. Think about it. Okay, if they cut Sam Darnold, they lose out a lot of dead cap, like more than we actually did. I want to say like I have to double check, but it's more than I had thought for like a third quarterback. Now, if you trade Jimmy Garoppolo or Trey Lance, you lose out on about $10 million. They're not going to cut either of those three quarterbacks.
Neither.
Sam Darnold's cap hit is $5 million. So if you cut him, you're losing out on 3.5. You're not doing that. Like that's a backup. That's a quality backup number in terms of cap hit.
Yeah.
So when you have three quarterbacks that if you cut or you trade, it's a big dead cap. You're not doing it. Like it's not going to happen, right?
Yeah.
Like, it just doesn't make sense financially for a roster. Now, when everyone's like, "Oh, they're going to do it," they don't love Trey Lance. Oh, bull! Cry me a river. Like really, like they gave him a challenge. They said, "Hey, come back better. We'll give you a chance to compete." Guess what? Went trained with Patrick Mahomes, quarterback coach. Trained with Patrick Mahomes. He's coming back better. Absolutely 100% better.
Yeah.
I guarantee it. Shorten his motion. He's going to be better. Going to be more accurate. Going to be quicker release. People are going to be like, "Oh my God, he did change something this summer." He's going to be a much better quarterback, and he's going to win the starting quarterback job week 1. I don't know if he continues it when Brock Purdy comes back. I think Brock Purdy would be back around week 4. So, I mean, Trey Lance has a 4-week dress rehearsal period where he gets to prove to Kyle Shanahan and the organization. If not, then hey, you're rolling with Brock Purdy. So,
yeah, it's not a bad issue to have. I mean, you go with what you got. So it's like under the contracts we got, we don't have to deal with paying a quarterback big money. So it's like I think as far as salary cap, dude, we have like the cheapest salary cap when it comes to the quarterback pay. So it's like Trey Lance is on a rookie deal, which you said is $10 million. Brock Purdy's like below $1 million, and then Sam Darnold's between $5 million. So that's estimated of like around $60 million combined. So that's pretty cheap for just not have to deal with paying a quarterback to be your starter for the next year. You know, we get to see what those two guys can be, and then we'll see how. I'm hoping this is not the worst case scenario, but maybe this is where Sam Darnold kind of, I don't know, like, you know, let's say hypothetically, like I don't want to think of it that way, but let's say it takes a chance for Sam Darnold. He comes in and just balls out of nowhere. Does that make his value even more higher if he enters free agency next year?
I don't think so. I think, and you're talking about Trey, right?
Yeah, like Trey, but I'm thinking like if Sam Darnold just somehow just beats him out, it would be kind of like I'm not saying I think Trey's going to win the job either way, but I mean,
it depends on how you look at it, right? Like we've seen a lot of quarterbacks in the NFL get second, third, fourth chances that aren't good. Now, those quarterbacks are given chances for other reasons than actually playing quarterback. Trey Lance might not get those options or the opportunity like that to get 3 or 4 chances. So I'm curious to see what happens there. I think he would be given a chance. For example, I guarantee you teams like Miami Dolphins would bring him in. Titans would bring him in. Bucks would bring him in immediately. Like, why not? Why not? Like, to me, I would 100% bring them in. It's a high reward, low risk situation if you bring them in.
Yeah, and I think what Trey Lance is, it's on to year 3 for him, so he can either prove himself. So, you know, if he proves himself, we can pick up that 5th-year option or not. So it's like this is the year for him to break out. So this is his chance to, like you just said, those 4 games that Brock Purdy will miss. And if he shows out in those 4 games, then we would probably feel more comfortable not playing Brock Purdy right away, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. If he proves himself, he's not losing that starting job though. And like fans are going to be very upset because they fell in love with Brock Purdy. Let me tell you something. Brock Purdy isn't that good. I don't know if you believe in Brock Purdy. I don't know if you're one of the believers. I don't believe.
I just think he was just put in a good supporting cast. Like there's a difference. Like he doesn't really like elevate. Like you give him weapons, that's all you give him. Like you give him Christian McCaffrey, a lot of those other receivers, and all that stuff. He's gonna look great. But if you look at Trey Lance, to be fair, he didn't have Christian McCaffrey. He didn't have George Kittle. He didn't have any of those other weapons. All he had throwing the ball, leading the team in receiving yards against the Bears was Juwan Jennings. Debo was barely becoming a factor, and Ayuk was getting some of those targets here and there. But outside of that, there wasn't enough. There wasn't a lot of weapons for him.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's hopefully the Niners get everything right. I don't know. Hopefully, that's all I can say, man. Is hopefully.
Yeah. As far as the draft grade, I guess I would just give it more of a. I mean, in some ways, if they didn't reach for that kicker, I would have at least tried to like give it a little more of a better grade. But you don't reach for the kicker this high, and double down on tight ends. I was really happy for the fact that they did double on tight ends. Linebacker, I didn't think we needed a double on linebacker, so that's where I kind of have a different grade there. But as far as the safety, I like they got the safety there. We didn't address the tackle. There was other position of needs we could have got. Okay, we took a flyer on a wide receiver. I give it at least in between a B minus, maybe up to a C. It depends on how the grade plays out, but I wouldn't be all super stoked about the draft, but I think it's more like, let's see how these guys play out. You know, there's most guys on our depth chart that would be guys we could develop, and we'll see how it plays out. But I feel like we didn't go flashy like everybody was saying. We just went with the guys that are going to contribute and help us in some ways.
Yeah, absolutely. They went with, I guess they went more the conservative route. Get players they feel like could make the team eventually, or their practice squad. And then with the next few years, they could develop them into players. But I'm kind of confident to say some of those players they took won't be on the roster within the next 2 to 3 years.
So I got a good feeling you might be right on that part. Unfortunately, it seems like that could be the case right there, because would any tackle we draft beat out Dewan Jones would have beat him out. Come on. Even though he was a big guy, but he was very athletic. Oh, let me see. Okay.
I think a few guys that they could have taken when they picked in the 5th, or actually, in the 5th, Jalen Duncan, Blake Freeland, when they took both players that in the 3rd round, possibly wasn't a fan of his. I know other people on 49ers Twitter were. So I don't know. I know Blake Freeland, a lot of people thought that he was a guy that could be a 3rd rounder. But Jalen Duncan, I think in the 5th round, because he ended up going in the 6th round to the Titans, I thought that would have been a steal.
Oh, yeah.
I think he's going to be a very good tackle for the Titans for years to come. That's a guy who, good size, good athlete, good tape, good player. I don't understand why he fell. Very curious on that one.
Okay. Yeah, I get where you're coming from. But, hey, thank you for your time, bro. I know you got some stuff to do. Tell everybody where they can find your social media platform, and maybe down the road we could definitely catch up sometime, man.
So I agree with Tommy real quick. I saw the last comment. I agree with Tommy Huxley. Freeland struggles in pass pro like McBust. I absolutely agree.
Morgan McGlinchey?
I agree. He did struggle in pass pro. His tape wasn't the cleanest. But you can find me on Clutch Gene Sports on YouTube. That's where I do all my stuff for the most part. I'm on Twitter at Marco_Mark1205. Pretty much where you can find me. Clutch Gene Sports is where I'm at with my guy Rohan. Plan on doing a little bit more stuff with more content creators, getting my name out there a little bit more, instead of just doing behind the scenes stuff like at Stanford and doing stuff at training camp. I might just try to put my stuff out there a little bit more on my YouTube channel, um, instead of just giving everything away on Twitter without getting anything in return. You know what I mean? Like that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, just keep grinding, man. You'll be all right, man. But thank you for your time. We'll catch up sometime, bro.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for having me on, man. Appreciate you.
No problem, bro.